Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, Capital Markets Analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today we're going to take a look at a report from BDSA Analytics that details how the Western cannabis markets have a hoarding effect on cannabis. So the article goes on to say that during April, the 8th month after the onset of the vaping crisis and the second month of the pandemic during the market, sales across the five markets totaled $615 million, down 7.7% from March's $666 million. March had spiked from $579 million in February as customers purchased cannabis ahead of store closures and concern about limitations on access. Overall sales growth from a year ago among the five Western markets ranged from 28% in Nevada, which saw an exodus of tourism as well as a move to delivery only, to high as 49% in Arizona. Oregon grew 40%, while California and Colorado experienced modest growth from a year ago. Concentrates, which represented 24 to 35% of sales by market, have improved from recent months but remain below the 26 to 38% share of sales in August before the vaping crisis hit. So we're going to take a closer look at each market detailed by BDS Analytics, starting with Arizona. In April of 2020, cannabis sales in Arizona medical dispensaries reached $86.7 million, growing 4% from March. And compared to the previous April, sales in Arizona grew by over 49%. Year-to-date through April, sales have reached $310 million, increasing by 42% compared to the same period last year. Just like most other states, flower sales accounted for more than 49% of the overall revenue, with $42.7 million in sales. Pre-roll joints, which are tracked as a separate category, they account for just 3% of revenue with $3 million in sales. Arizona is still fairly conservative, so they're going to prefer to have vape pens over pre-rolls, but concentrate sales accounted for about 35% of overall revenues. Vape products, the largest segment of the concentrate category, generated $18.6 million in sales, accounting for 62% of the Arizona concentrate markets and 21% of sales across all categories. Compared to April 2019, sales of dabbable concentrates grew by 65%, while vape sales grew by 33%. The ingestible category accounted for 11% of sales in April, with $9.4 million in revenue. Compared to April of 2019 and 2020, sales in the category grew by 34% and decreased by 4%, respectively. In April, the $8.8 million in sales from edibles generated over 93% of ingestible sales overall. And compared to the previous April, edible sales increased 46%. I don't think Arizona is going to be the only state that shows that trend, with edibles kind of popping up as the go-to product. All right, looking at data from California. So in April of 2020, cannabis sales reached $252 million, declining 9%. But year to date, they've reached over $1 billion, a 9% increase compared to the same period in 2019. Flower sales dominated, $97.5 million in April, accounting for 39% of overall revenues. Pre-rolls accounted for 9% of the overall revenues, with $23.2 million in sales. And concentrates being the second largest category for April of 2020, reaching $78 million in sales, accounting for 31% of total revenue. Vape sales accounted for 77% of concentrate categories at $60.5 million, but those sales fell 12% from the trailing month and 16% from the prior April. California's April ingestible sales generated $44 million, but declined 13%. Colorado sales in April declined 9% for a total of $148 million. Flower sales accounted for more than 50%, totaling $74.5 million, with pre-rolls generating $7.6 million in sales in April, decreasing by 3% and 16% from the trailing month. Concentrates in Colorado represented a 7% decline at a total of $43.6 million in sales. Vape products were the largest segment, reaching $18.4 million, but declining 22%. Edibles generated $18.6 million in sales, contributing over 94% of the ingestible category. And sublinguals made up the remaining 6% of ingestible sales, totaling $1.1 million for the month. Despite the lack of tourism, Nevada dispensaries generated $38.3 million in sales. Compared to the trailing month, that was a decline of 32%. And year-to-date through April, sales for the market have reached $214.8 million, decreasing 1% over the same period last year. Flower sales accounted for over 51%, reaching $19.6 million for the month, declining 27% from March. And pre-rolls accounting for 9% of sales, with $3.3 million, decreasing by 14% from the previous month. Compared to April 2019, pre-rolls decreased by 56%. Concentrates were only 24% of the overall revenue for the month at $9.2 million. Vape products, the largest segment, reached $6.8 million for the month, contributing more than 74% of the overall market. Edibles made up 87% of ingestible sales, reaching $4.6 million in April. Oregon's adult use and medical market reached 89.5 million in sales. Compared to April 2019, sales grew by 40% overall, and year to date, sales in Oregon have reached 311 million, growing 30% compared to the same period in 2019. Sales of flower accounted for 48% of the market at 42.7 million. That was an increase by 66% from April of 2019. Pre-rolls accounted for only 8% of the overall revenue at 6.9 million. Concentrates generated 24.2 million in sales in April. That was an increase of 7%. Vape products, the largest segment of that category, generated 12.5 million in April, contributing 52% of concentrate sales and a 14% of total monthly revenue. Edibles made up 82% of the ingestible category and 11% of overall monthly sales, generating 10.3 million in April. So it looks like some of the takeaways we can see from the data is that sales continue to dominate. It could be hoarding, it could be continuing to smoke, but we are seeing a drastic decline in pre-roll sales. We're also seeing skyrocketing sales for edibles, while topicals are having a decline in sales. It could be that people aren't working or they want something that's stronger while they're staying at home. Either way, the data is definitive. Sales are changing, patterns are changing, buying behavior is changing. Don't know how long that's going to be in effect. Maybe until people go back to work, maybe indefinitely. I don't know. You have to come back to the Talking Hedge and find out. So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.